Hi, everyone. I am here with Michelle Mansfield. She is the author of The Honest Mom Project. So, Michelle, so excited to see you and have this chat with you this morning.
Oh my gosh, I'm so excited to see you too. I wish that we were back at Graham's.
I
That we could
know.
do it there. I know the sound probably wouldn't be the best, but it was so nice to meet you face to face and find another local author. So thank you for having me.
Yes, yes. For those of you who don't know, Michelle and I live very close to each other. We're in the same town, and I was so lucky to be able to meet her at our local coffee shop. And I was thinking of this would be amazing if we could do this together, like in the same room, but I got to figure that out.
I do
I'm not used
too.
to that.
I know. I'm like, it would be cool to do like a live podcast somewhere, and then it's like all that stuff you got to think about. So it's on the list, right?
Yes, it's on the list. So I finished your book recently and I resonated so much with it. Oh my gosh. I was I was kept nodding my head. Yes, yes, yes. It was just crazy. And I wish I would have I knew of you because we were in different circles, but I wish now after reading your book that I would have known you at the time that we both had toddlers or newborns because I think our journey would be a lot more enjoyable.
Oh, I know. Don't you like meet people now, or especially as like an author, you're going around doing all your events and you're meeting all these people that, especially with your topic of your book and friendships, it's you meet people that they're like, I felt that way too. And it's like, well, why didn't we all just get together and talk about it? We would have felt so much better. But it's true. All the people that I'm interviewing and meeting on social media, I'm like, man, if I would have known you 10 years ago, I wonder what my postpartum experience would have been like.
Yeah, I agree because there was just so many things that I had went through that you went through. So let's talk about what your book is about and what inspired you to write it.
All right, that's a loaded gun right there. So it originally started more like a diary, like journaling. I
Okay.
was kind of anti-journal. You hear people like journal, get your feelings out, and I'm like, I don't have time to like scoop my litter. Much more, read a book or journal or whatever. But you learn how to make time for stuff like that. But anyways, I remember in 2018 just kind of starting to get like things out on paper and meeting women online on Instagram. So that's why I do not knock social media
Yeah.
because the women that were being honest online really saved me and created this book. Like, I can't take credit for my book 100% by any means, even 50%, to be honest. And it was just meeting these women that were being vulnerable, talking, writing things out where I was like, oh my gosh, that was me. Kind of probably like how you felt. And I felt that way. I went through that. So, my book, to be honest with you, these aren't like groundbreaking feelings, but it helps to have someone else say, it first. And
Yes.
then you're like, oh my gosh, even if it's one person, you're like, I'm not going crazy.
Yeah.
I have someone else out there that I can direct message or just keep reading and get that
Yeah.
confidence. So I remember being in downtown Aurora. Brooklyn was taking classes or a camp at the Paramount one summer, and I found this amazing coffee shop right on the river. And I just started writing, thinking journaling, whatever. And then, people out there, when you tell them what you're doing, they're like, why don't you write a book about it? And here we are, 2018, 2020 to 2023.
Yeah. Yeah, was wondering if you kept a journal, and now I wish I would have, but I have your book. I just go back to it and read and be like, yeah, that could have been my journal. So,
Oh, yeah.
but I applaud you for finding the moms who were real and who you could talk to on social media because honestly, I joined some moms groups in the area, and I would try to talk to some of the moms about what I was going through and how I felt. And it was almost like the women didn't want to hear it, and they were, oh, that's not my experience. And then I felt more alone, and I'm like, I can't be the only one. What is wrong with me that am I the only one who has these feelings? Like, I just felt not validated. And so I just shoved a lot of it under the rug. But now that I'm past it, I'm finding, like your book, and women who have been through it. But I had not had the support at the time, and I thought that something was wrong with me, that I was feeling the way I did. So I applaud you for writing the book and finding your people, because
Thank
I
you.
gave up. I really did.
Thank you. I mean, I gave up hundreds of times before I wrote the book. So, we all have our different paths of getting there. And, there's many reasons. I'm sure you've talked about this and you dealt with this as well as an author. Like, what are your reasons? What is your purpose for writing? And through all my, like, I love to research and read way too many books and listen to
Yes.
way too many people tell me like how to do something. But through all of those, books and when it came to writing nonfiction specifically, I really had to hone in on the why. And I don't know, some people may think I'm crazy, but I honestly did not want to be a New York Times bestseller. And that's great if that's someone's
Yeah.
goal. I didn't want to I already put so much freaking money into this book and other things where I'm like, I'm
Yeah.
not going to make money on this book. And
Yeah.
most authors, I think, do not in the nonfiction world,
Yeah.
from what I've heard on the streets. So I sat, I'm like, well, why am I doing this? Like, why do I want this out there? And it was simply to, like, let's say you were, at a mom's group or, at a coffee shop. And I love to eavesdrop on conversations and kind of chime in. I'm one of those, and be like, here, take it,
Yeah.
take this book. And I have people that have bought it and they're like, well, I was thinking about giving it to a friend. Should I share the Amazon link? I'm like, give them your copy if you're done. Like, just keep
Yeah.
sharing it. Just go around and just, so that was, I honed in finally on the real reason. I wanted a mom to read it quickly.
Yeah.
I
Yes.
didn't want it to be too long, or too drawn out. I wanted to break it up in like digestible ways where you could put it down for a few
Yeah.
days, bring it back up. And I just wanted a mom to read it and be like, oh, like a weight lifted off, and confidence to then maybe, go to that next step of actually talking out loud, about it.
Yeah. Yeah, I applaud you also for just getting it out there and wanting to get it into the hands of the people that need it the most. And it doesn't have to be a bestseller, but honestly, the as time goes on, you might find that there's a lot of buzz around your book, and people, you may see moms in the area reading it at the coffee shop or in unexpected places, because I really do think that it's something that every mom should read and will get something out of. And I hope that it is successful for you. I know
Well,
you're
thank
not
you.
into all the accolades and everything, but when you have a book this important, it really does need to reach a wide audience. So I wish you the best of luck with that. So
Thank you.
I think every mom could should read this, right? But you have an intended audience. Um, like, who would you say is like your niche audience, your target market?
It's changed.
Okay. Okay.
Just it was self-realization of my own life, not that I've realized that my life does not equate to what everyone else has lived and experienced. But I mean, I don't know about you, Annie, but like when I was a brand new mom in the survival mode, like I feel like, it's like an episode of Naked and Afraid by yourself, I'm like, man, what, you're just kind of surviving and hallucinating maybe. But I originally thought it was going to be that new mom. Like you see them, they're crying, they're like, I don't know what, and they're overwhelmed, and you give them the book. But were you reading anything those first like
No,
few months, six
no,
months? Yeah,
no.
I was not reading anything. I was like staring into space, cross-eyed.
Yeah.
So I originally, yeah, I thought that. And then I thought about my own life and when I started writing this book and really getting my feelings out. And it was when, Brooklyn was like about 5 years old at kindergarten stage where I had some room to breathe. Cause to be honest, the toddler stage was also very challenging. And I still
Yeah.
felt like I was in the thick of things,
Yeah.
and not reading.
Yeah.
And I really feel that it's beneficial, and I've had some validation with this. Even moms who have kids in high school that
Yes.
have courteously, out of courtesy, read the book. They've said that it still resonates with them, and if anything, they go back and they're like, "Wow, okay, now this makes sense."
Yes.
And it's like they've buried it, like you and I both
Yeah.
did. They've buried these feelings and experiences and how they adjusted. And they've gone through life not really acknowledging it. Even if it's, just because it's been 10, 16 years doesn't mean that that goes away.
Yeah.
So I really feel it may be a mom like me or some of the other moms that I've spoken to that have children that are grown,
Yes.
and it just validates what they went through and they have time to read it now.
Yes. Yeah, I thought the same thing when I started reading it. I thought, "Oh man, I wish I would have had this book when my daughter was just born." But like you said, I wouldn't have read it. I wouldn't it just yeah, like you said, we were so exhausted, we were zombies. There was no way we could read it. And the other thing I thought about is what if as a mother I had this before I had or when I was pregnant. But then I thought I don't know because you kind of have to go through it before you recognize and understand it. Because if I would have read this as pregnant, I'd be like, oh, that's not going to be my life.
Oh, you and me both. I got this,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. Yeah. So I think like maybe the 3-year old to the 5-year old was the sweet spot for someone to read it. But I actually agree. My daughter is almost 11 now. And after reading this, I was able to, I felt like I was starting to able to let go
Let go. Yep.
of some of these things that I was feeling. Well, for example, and I know you commented on this yesterday, and I still feel this way as well, is I want you to talk about creating the circus around your child or children because I think our generation does this more so than any other generation.
I know. I felt like a homeless clown at times. Like not only like was I in clothes 3 days old and like haven't showered and what my hair's all over the place, but then I'm trying to be this entertainer,
Yes.
like this angry, those angry clowns in movies at birthday parties that just hate their job, and you're like, why are you being a clown? Like then, like why are you and that we should be also like, why are you trying to like do flips and all these things and crazy stuff to entertain your children?
Yeah.
Yeah, I am so guilty. I'm a people pleaser. I want everyone to be happy. I've got, some I've got lots of issues, but especially with my daughter, it's is she bored? Is she learning? At this point in life, her brain is doing this. I had apps that told me, today her brain is, this, and you should do all these things. And I'm like, oh my gosh. And I remember my grandmother, bless her heart, still alive, 96, with full on dementia, and she still mentions this, by the way. I'll get back to that quickly. But every time I would go to my grandmother's with her, and I'd have my 10-pound diaper bag plus a 31, those rectangular massive bags from 31 that people
Yeah.
take to the pool. I'd have
Yes.
every toy to go to my grandmother's.
Yeah.
in the diaper bag. And I would walk in like I was going on vacation, and she's like, "What?" My grandmother's very outspoken. And
Yeah.
she's like, "What is going on?" And I'm like, "What do you mean?" She's like, "What is all this stuff?" And I'm like, and she's walking a little bit, let's say she's in the toddler stage.
Yeah.
I mean, I was sitting there visiting her, but I was on the floor, like, and my grandmother constantly, every time I would go over, would you just leave her alone? Like,
Yeah.
just let her play. She can just crawl. What is your deal? What are you doing? And I'm like, I know, let me color with her. Let me do this. Oh, she did, she looks like leave her be. So I'm not kidding you. So I hate to joke about dementia, but I have to make it's been a hard road with her. But she's still, a week ago, she's like, she doesn't know my name half the days, but she will be like, "If you just leave her alone and let her be her own person." And I come home and I'm like, she is still talking about this like 10 years later. But, she lived in a different time. And so, like, as well as my mom interacted with us, but she
Yeah.
wasn't on the ground, like
Yes.
playing with us constantly. She had a house to clean, she had a husband who traveled, and she didn't have a cleaning lady or any of this stuff. And she had twin boys along with me. And
Mm.
it wasn't until Brooklyn was in Montessori, which was 18 months she started, that her teachers educated not her, but me on how to leave her be and
Yeah.
how it was good. I needed someone to validate it though for me.
Yeah. Yeah. I was the same way with my daughter. I felt guilty if I wasn't constantly entertaining her. I felt like that was my job. But now I look back and I think, ooh, I probably should have let her be so she could be more independent and figure out what she wants to do and not be lost now. Sometimes she's like, I'm bored, I'm bored. Like half like the purpose of life is to always be doing something. And now I tell her, sometimes it's good to be bored. Go, now I can say
Yeah, now.
yeah, no. So let's talk about mom guilt because that's a big thing too that mothers have. What are your thoughts? Like, where does this come from? What does it mean? And if you have a tip on how to get through it.
Okay, let me start with the tip. Walk with the guilt. It's kind of like what you hear out there in the personal development world of walking with your fear. Don't ignore it. I have a friend who wrote an awesome book called Fear is My Homeboy. She's a little on the gangster side. And she inspired me, as well as other books that have that same theme of, you know, acknowledge it. I honestly feel I've always had guilt ingrained in me. It may just be in my DNA. I was that girl that felt guilty if I didn't play with, a certain stuffed animal or Cabbage Patch doll. Like I thought it was like Toy Story. Like I felt like they had feelings. And I had guilt if, someone looked like they were left out in a group when I was in elementary school, and so on and so forth. I've just always had guilt if someone is okay, if they're happy, if they're, and that's just been in my blood.
Yeah.
And I could go to therapy till the day I die. I have gone for it, and it's just in me. And so instead of fighting it or pushing it under the rug, or I'm really just, for me, heck with mom guilt. You don't deserve to feel that way. That message for me just doesn't work, but it may work for others. So nothing wrong with it. But for me, what worked is walking with it and acknowledging it. And also, like, what is it saying to me? Like, if I feel guilty because I'm going out the door to visit, to go out to dinner with some friends, and I feel guilty leaving her at home with my husband, which you're like, why? I just sit there when I'm walking to the restaurant. I still go and I acknowledge and I say, this just means that I love being with her, and it's hard, and I love her. And I love spending time with her. If you don't feel those feelings, it doesn't mean you don't love your child on the
Yeah.
other hand. But for me, it made me feel better. And I had to coach myself, like, she's with my husband or whoever I chose to watch her. And I had other people around me, inspiring me, saying it's good for her to be exposed to so many different people and things in school, dropping her off at this Montessori. Oh my gosh, going on a weekend with my girlfriends. And you know what? If the guilt ate too much at me, maybe that was the check-in point of, am I ready to do this yet? Maybe next year, I'm not saying never, but maybe I just need to check in on what this guilt is really telling me.
Yes. Yes, that's really good advice. I'm gonna have to use that. So, you read a lot of self-help books, and I
Too
do
much.
too. I read so many. What makes your book s different than the others on the market?
So when I read a lot of them, and wonderful, wonderful resources out there. I like that my book is very to the point and short and sweet. I tell my story,
Mhm.
but I also feel like it has more of an aura of talking on the couch, like someone across from you just validating, validating, validating. I didn't want it to be a memoir because, I'm this broad in Geneva. Like who's going to be interested in that, right? But I wanted it to be a comfortable couch, coffee, tea, choice of beverage, and someone just to be relaxed and
Mhm.
having someone talk to them and converse and that person just to feel validated. I didn't also want them to feel that the tips that I gave were the end all be all. So I hope that the aura was also like, this worked for me. Maybe it will for you. If it doesn't, it's okay. And I'm here for you still. Here's how to get in touch with me, and
Yeah.
yeah, and I wanted it again to be short.
Yes. Yes, well, you succeeded in that, and I flew through it, and I was happy that you had kept it kept it short. Even now that I'm not in the throes of it, I still enjoy a short book that packs a punch.
Yeah, to the point. We don't need to talk about it for so a long time. I condensed it so many times.
Yeah.
And I just, yeah, I mean, the books that I read out there were wonderful, but I kind of felt myself getting a little bit too lost in it, and
Yeah.
just a little hard for me to read. I kind of just was like looking for that sweet spot that
Yeah.
made me feel a certain way. I appreciated their stories, but the
Yeah.
memoirs are hard because that's their unique story, and I
Mhm.
wanted people to know that this isn't the Bible here, but
Yeah.
maybe if you take away one of the chapters, it's a win.
Yes. Yes. So, what do you want readers to take away from your book?
I want them to take away that it, you're not failing, you're not stupid, you're not weak if you are having a really hard time adjusting to being a mom. That you are a wonderful human if you have regrets at times or wonder if you made the right decision or miss the easier life that you had. And there's people out there that don't may not intentionally do it, but there's this aura that motherhood is bliss and it's the best thing that's ever happened. It changed this, my relationship is this now, and I just can't imagine. And if you're like, what, I kind of hate it right now. It's okay. It's not going to be your entire motherhood. Just like any relationship, there's peaks and valleys. You're getting to know one another and you're kind of dancing around things, and your lives you're trying to make it work. And that goes for a baby and a toddler and an elementary. Like you're going to be dancing with your child and trying to figure things out. And it's okay if you have your days where you're questioning yourself and you're just don't when you hide your feelings like I did, it eats you alive and you are numb and you can't connect with the mom you're supposed to be. And now that I finally have done that, I'm really enjoying most of motherhood.
Yes.
And yeah, and just but then I have my days where I'm like, oh man, I wish I was in college and just paying my rent and going out. You
I
know?
think, yeah, I think we all have those days where we're like, oh, just transport me back to when I was, on my own.
Well, and another thing that's a good point with this book, and my intention was I never was formally diagnosed, which was my bad. I did not see someone. I do have depression in my history and my family where I'm like, okay, you know something's going on. But I wanted this book to be because a book where you don't have to have a formal diagnosis or something really drastic going on to still get help. You can just be having a really hard time adjusting to motherhood. So don't feel like, oh, well, I don't have postpartum depression or postpartum anxiety or any of the, and this could go for any, this book can be for anyone, but I wanted it to be open to someone that may not have like a diagnosis attached to them, but they
Yeah.
still need help.
Yeah. Yeah. That's great. So, where can people find out more about you? So, you have a podcast. You want to talk a little bit about what that podcast is?
Well, if you do not want to read the book, you can listen to my voice, but we also talk about many other topics besides the book. So just being honest, I have amazing guests, just like you do, Annie, and also some solo episodes. You can listen to some of the chapters, but it's just me being honest about adjusting to motherhood and how hard it can be. It's not all negative, though. It's not me complaining the whole time, but, just some validation for your feelings. But yeah, it's the Honest Mom podcast.
Okay, great. And where can people find your amazing book?
Oh my gosh, it's a wonderful little place that everyone lives on called Amazon, if you haven't heard. But if you go to my website, I have the Amazon link there along with, the podcast episodes. So the easiest way is to go to my website, which is michellemansfieldauthor.com. And you can find the Amazon link. You can find episodes of the podcast, events that I'm doing locally, things like that. So yeah, that short and sweet. That's where you can find me or knock on my door if you're in the area.
I might
Sit
have
on
to
my
do
couch. I'll make you some coffee. Yeah.
that. Well, I appreciate you spending some time with me this morning, and it was very eye-opening. I loved your book. I wish you a lot of success with it.
Well, thank you. And the feeling is mutual. I'm so glad we connected. And our next goal is to get the four of us together, your daughter, my daughter.
Yes.
Yes. And
Yes,
then,
'cause I
yeah,
think they're the same age, right?
she, Brooklyn turned 10 in February. So
Oh,
same,
yeah.
basically. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Sounds
10 going
great.
on 13. So, yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.